The grand hall of Bramwell House shimmered under the glow of countless candles, their flickering light bouncing off gilded mouldings and polished floors. Oliver Bramwell felt it all, not through sight, but through the subtle vibrations of movement, the hum of conversation, the warmth of laughter drifting across the room. It had been 3 long years since the accident that had robbed him of his vision, and in that time, the vibrant world he once navigated with ease had gradually narrowed into a series of careful routines and whispered observations. Tonight, as the orchestra played and couples twirled around him, Oliver remained rooted near the edge of the room. The murmur of polite society brushed past him, laden with pity and curiosity. Old acquaintances who once sought his wit and guidance now spoke with hesitance, as if speaking to fragile porcelain. Ladies who had once vied for his attention now skirted around him, polite smiles masking the unease of witnessing a man transformed by circumstance. Dancing was the cruelest reminder of what he had lost. He could hear the smooth glide of slippers across marble, the rustle of silks, the rhythm of moving feet, but he could no longer join the flow. Invitations to dance had ceased. No one dared risk the embarrassment of guiding a blind partner across the ballroom, no matter how admired he had once been. Yet, amid this sea of distance and discomfort, a quiet shift began. A hand, offered without hesitation, reached toward him, a simple gesture that carried the weight of courage and warmth. For the first time in years, Oliver felt a spark of joy ignite within him, a connection that transcended the limitations imposed by sight or society's expectations. Outside, London's evening lamps flickered, casting their soft glow on streets that held no idea of the change unfolding inside Bramwell House. A story was about to begin, one proving that love can flourish in unexpected places, that bravery often wears the guise of simple kindness, and that the heart can lead where the eyes cannot follow. The following morning brought an unusual visitor to the house. Oliver was seated in his study, dictating letters to his secretary, when Thomas entered, bowing slightly. "Your Grace," he said, pausing as if gauging the reaction, "Lord Ashworth has arrived. But he is not alone." Thomas stepped lightly, his voice measured. "Your Grace, Lord Ashworth has arrived, accompanied by Lady Catherine and her mother, Lady Margaret." Oliver paused, fingertips tracing the raised dots of the braille papers before him. Lady Catherine, the young niece so frequently discussed at social teas as a potential match, was here, and with her mother. That combination rarely boded well for Oliver. Visits like these were seldom casual. "Show them to the drawing room, Thomas. I shall join them shortly." A few minutes later, Oliver entered the drawing room. The soft rustle of silks and a hint of fine perfume filled the air. Though he could not see her, he remembered Lady Catherine's reputation, poised, graceful, a blonde celebrated for both her beauty and accomplishments. "Oliver, my good friend," Lord Ashworth's booming voice cut through the quiet, "I trust our visit is not inconvenient." Lady Margaret was eager to renew her acquaintance, and Catherine has been looking forward to a proper introduction. "Lady Margaret, Lady Catherine," Oliver replied, inclining his head in greeting. "You are most welcome." Lady Margaret's voice was smooth, warm, but measured with purpose. "Your Grace, how delightful to see you well. We've heard such intriguing accounts of your recent re-entry into society." Oliver's jaw tightened, sensing the subtle undertone. "Indeed." "Oh, yes," Lady Catherine added, her tone light but pointed, "everyone is talking about your performance at the ball. How courageous of you to dance, and how considerate of your companion to guide you." A spark of irritation flared within Oliver. "Miss Collins did not guide me, Lady Catherine. We danced as equals." "Of course," Lady Margaret replied, her smile steady, though one might wonder if such attentions were wise, perhaps raising expectations that should remain measured. Oliver's temper flickered, his voice cool but firm. "I'm afraid I do not understand your meaning." Lady Margaret inclined her head slightly, the polite mask hiding a sharper edge. "Why, naturally, the young lady would find flattery in your attention. A woman in her position would hardly expect attention from a man of your rank," Lady Margaret continued, her tone honeyed but sharp. "One hopes she has not taken your kindness the wrong way." Oliver's fingers tightened at his sides, the familiar surge of frustration rising. "I think you are mistaken about the nature of my relationship with Miss Collins." Lady Catherine laughed, delicate but pointed. "Surely there can be no real connection. I mean, what could a companion possibly share with a duke? She cannot hope to understand the intricacies of your life." "On the contrary," Oliver said, his voice cool and steady, "Miss Collins understands me better than anyone has in years." A cough from Lord Ashworth broke the tension. "Perhaps, Oliver, we should steer toward lighter matters. Catherine has been studying music with esteemed masters in Vienna. Perhaps she could perform for you." "That is generous," Oliver replied, "but I have other engagements this afternoon." Lady Margaret leaned in slightly, persuasive as ever. "Surely a few minutes could be spared." Music is a pleasure your condition does not diminish, and Catherine has such talent. Oliver bristled at the casual reference to his blindness, but before he could respond, Lady Catherine moved to the pianoforte. "I'll play something gentle," she said, her voice tinged with a studied sweetness. "I hear those who cannot see often find great solace in music." As her fingers moved across the keys, the piece was flawless in technique but lacked depth, sterile where it should have breathed. Oliver's mind wandered to the memory of Sarah, recalling how she had described music at the ball, how she spoke of dancers flowing like petals on a breeze, of rhythms that seemed to paint the air itself. Unlike Catherine's mechanical execution, Sarah's connection to music had been alive, intuitive, and utterly human. The delicate, precise notes lingered in the room, but they felt hollow, lacking the life that had once stirred Oliver's imagination. Lady Catherine played with the air of someone demonstrating skill rather than sharing beauty. "Such finesse," Lady Margaret murmured, her words polished like porcelain. "Catherine's touch is exquisite. She would be ideal for welcoming your guests when you resume your rightful place in society." Oliver's patience snapped. He rose, his chair scraping lightly against the floor. "I'm afraid this visit must end," he said, his voice steady but firm. "I have an engagement this afternoon that cannot be delayed." "An engagement?" Lord Ashworth's brow lifted in surprise. "You rarely leave your home during the day." "I shall be taking a walk in Hyde Park, with Miss Collins," Oliver said deliberately. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. The music stopped mid-phrase, Lady Catherine's hands frozen over the keys. "Oliver," Lord Ashworth said cautiously, "surely you cannot be serious about this friendship with your companion." "I am quite serious about Miss Collins," Oliver replied without hesitation. "More serious than I have been about anything in years." "But your Grace," Lady Margaret sputtered, flustered. "Surely you understand how impossible such a connection would be." "The difference in our stations is of no concern to me," Oliver interrupted, voice low but unwavering. "Miss Collins possesses intelligence, character, and a warmth that far outweighs any lack of title or fortune. Those are the qualities that matter to me." "You're not thinking clearly," Lady Catherine interjected sharply. "Your isolation has clouded your judgment. You mistake gratitude for affection." Oliver's head turned toward her, his tone edged with quiet authority. "Lady Catherine, I may have lost my sight, but I have not lost my sense. I know the difference between gratitude and love, and I know exactly what I feel for Miss Collins." "Love?" Lady Margaret's voice pitched higher, bordering on panic. "Your Grace, you cannot." "I am considering many things," Oliver said firmly, cutting her off. "And I remind you all that my personal affairs remain precisely that, personal." Once the visitors had departed in a flurry of murmurs and rustling gowns, Oliver sank into the quiet of his drawing room, the echoes of their words still hanging in the air. By nightfall, London would be abuzz with talk of the Duke of Bramwell openly pursuing a companion. Yet, instead of fear, a lightness filled him, a freedom he had not known in years. For 3 long years, society had dictated the terms of his life, shaping his movements, his decisions, even his very presence. Sarah had reminded him that he could choose for himself, that he still had the power to shape his own story. The room was carefully arranged for the gathering, loyal friends, steadfast family, and those who had stood by him through his most trying days. Notably absent were the familiar faces of high society, the ones who once dominated his calendar and conversations. Their disapproval had been evident, and he realized, with a quiet satisfaction, that he did not miss them at all. "Nervous?" Dr. Harrison asked, standing nearby. He had long been Oliver's confidant and would serve as his best man. "Not nervous," Oliver replied, voice calm but vibrant with anticipation. "Excited. I've waited my entire life for this moment, I just didn't know it until I met Sarah." A soft melody began to drift through the room, not a grand flourish, but a gentle piano piece performed by Lady Thornton's niece. Oliver's head tilted toward the sound, attuned to the approaching footsteps. His pulse quickened as he sensed Sarah drawing near. She appeared in the doorway, her hand resting lightly on James's arm. The small gathering rose, silent in reverence. Though Oliver could not see her, he felt her presence as clearly as sunlight breaking through clouds. Each step she took carried a quiet assurance, the rustle of her silk gown brushing softly against the floor. "She's radiant," Dr. Harrison murmured, almost to himself. Oliver's lips curved into a gentle smile. "I know," he said simply. When she reached his side, Oliver extended his hand. Her fingers slid into his, warm and delicate, sending a thrill of connection through them both. "Hello," she whispered, a voice meant only for him. "Hello," he replied, his smile lighting up his entire being. The vicar, a gentle man who had watched Oliver grow from a boy into the man he had become, began the ceremony with a voice full of warmth and sincerity. His words spoke not only of love, but of courage, trust, and the strength to face life's challenges together. "Friends and family," he began, "we gather today to celebrate the union of Oliver and Sarah. This is more than a marriage, it is a testament to love that has endured trials, understanding that has overcome prejudice, and hope that has carried them through adversity." As the familiar cadence of the vows filled the room, Oliver's mind drifted over the path that had led them here. Just a year prior, he had been adrift, his world narrowed by his blindness, his spirit heavy with doubt and isolation. Yet now, standing beside the woman who had recognized him for who he truly was, he felt a sense of completeness he had never known, not even in the days when sight had been his. The vicar turned to Oliver, voice steady and reverent. "Oliver, do you take Sarah to be your lawfully wedded wife, to love, honor, and cherish, in sickness and in health, through every joy and trial, as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Oliver replied, his voice ringing with certainty. "With all that I am, I do." "And Sarah," the vicar continued, "do you take Oliver to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love, honor, and cherish, in sickness and in health, through every joy and trial, as long as you both shall live?" Sarah met his gaze, aware that his eyes could not see hers, yet sensing in him a depth of feeling that spoke louder than any sight could. In that silent exchange, she found everything she needed: love, respect, partnership, and the promise of countless adventures awaiting them together. "I do," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling but unwavering. "I do, completely and forever." As they slid the simple gold bands onto each other's fingers, Oliver felt a sense of peace he had never known. These rings were not symbols of wealth or status, they were promises of shared dreams, mutual support, and a life built on love rather than expectation. "By the authority vested in me," the vicar said warmly, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Oliver's hands cupped Sarah's face, feeling the softness of her skin, the subtle warmth of her presence. She leaned into him, and their kiss was gentle, tender, full of unspoken promises. It sealed not only their marriage but the partnership that would guide every choice, every challenge, every joy. Around them, applause and laughter rippled through the room, but in that moment, they were alone, enveloped in the quiet certainty of having found one another. The wedding breakfast that followed was intimate and filled with warmth. Guests shared stories of the couple's courtship, laughter and heartfelt congratulations blending together in an atmosphere of genuine affection. Dr. Harrison rose for a toast, his voice carrying sincerity that touched every heart in the room. "To Oliver and Sarah," he said, lifting his glass. "You have shown us that love is not about perfection, but about finding the person who completes you in the ways that matter most. You remind us that the heart perceives what the eyes cannot, and that a true partnership is built on respect, trust, and the courage to be wholly vulnerable with one another. May your life together be filled with all the happiness you have given each other." As the afternoon sun dipped low and guests began to depart, Oliver and Sarah wandered into the garden behind Bramwell House. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of late-blooming roses, their petals a delicate frame for the couple's first private moments as husband and wife. "So," Oliver said with a playful grin, spinning her gently in his arms, "how does it feel to be a duchess?" Sarah laughed, radiant, her joy spilling into every word. "It's wonderful, not for the title, but because I'm your wife. Because we are equals in all that matters, partners in love, life, and every adventure that awaits us." "I love you, Sarah Bramwell," Oliver said, drawing her close. "I love your courage, your kindness, your refusal to let the world define you. You've transformed my life from one of emptiness into a life filled with purpose, joy, and love." "I love you too, Oliver," she replied, pressing her hand to his heart. "You've given me everything I never dared to hope for, not just comfort and security, but a love that is real, and the freedom to be truly myself with someone who cherishes me completely." As they lingered in the garden, surrounded by the last blooms of autumn, Oliver felt a quiet awe at how unpredictable life could be. Only months ago, he had seen himself as a man constrained by his blindness, resigned to a life of solitude and carefully measured routines. Yet Sarah's fearless gesture, the simple invitation to dance, had set in motion a chain of events that neither of them could have anticipated, reshaping their lives completely. "What shall we do first as husband and wife?" Sarah asked, her eyes dancing with playful anticipation. Oliver pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, savoring the warmth and the joy in her presence. "First," he said softly, "we'll take a proper honeymoon. Somewhere quiet and peaceful, where it's just the two of us, and we can enjoy every moment of being married." "And then?" Sarah prompted, leaning closer. "Then," Oliver continued, a confident smile tugging at his lips, "we'll return home and show London what a true marriage looks like, one built on love, respect, and partnership. So devoted to each other that even our harshest critics cannot deny it." Sarah laughed, her voice ringing like sunlight through leaves. "Together. Always together." "Together," Oliver echoed, holding her hand firmly in his, feeling the unspoken promise of a lifetime stretched before them, an adventure of love, courage, and unwavering companionship. Through whatever joys and challenges come our way, we'll face them together, Oliver said, his voice steady, as equals, as partners, as two people who chose love over fear and meaning over empty social expectations. As the sun dipped below the London skyline, stretching golden shadows across the garden where they had pledged their lives to one another, Oliver and Sarah walked hand in hand, stepping into a future they had chosen for themselves. In each other, they had discovered more than love, they had found purpose, companionship, and the quiet satisfaction that comes from creating something beautiful despite the world's doubts. The Duke, once defined by sight and status, now understood that the most extraordinary gifts are not given by those who seek to impress or control, but by those who see us clearly and accept us fully. In Sarah's fearless decision to dance with him when no one else would, Oliver had gained not just a wife, but a true partner for life, someone who would walk beside him, challenge him, and help him become the man he was meant to be, all while crafting a love story that would inspire for generations. Their marriage became more than a union of hearts, it was a testament to love conquering prejudice, courage overcoming convention, and hope prevailing over despair. It proved that true nobility resides not in wealth or title, but in the bravery to love fully, the wisdom to respect one another, and the unshakable conviction that together, two people can rise above any obstacle. 5 years later, the annual charity ball at Bramwell House had become one of London's most anticipated events, but not for the usual reasons. Unlike the typical gatherings of the Ton, which thrived on display and gossip, this ball drew people for the warmth, sincerity, and genuine joy that Oliver and Sarah cultivated in every corner of their home. The Bramwell Ball had become far more than a social event, it was a celebration of lives changed through the Duke and Duchess's dedication to charity. The grand ballroom of Bramwell House shimmered with light and laughter, but what made it extraordinary was the genuine warmth that filled the room. Sarah moved among the guests with the same grace that had captured London's heart years before, her presence radiating kindness and confidence. At 31, she had grown into her role as Duchess effortlessly, yet it was her empathy and unwavering commitment to others that commanded true admiration, even from those who had once doubted her. "Your Grace," Lady Harrington approached, accompanied by her daughter, "thank you for including us in this evening's celebration. The work you and the Duke are doing is truly extraordinary." Sarah offered a polite smile, recalling the very same woman who had once tried to sway her away from Oliver. Time and the undeniable success of their partnership had softened many former critics, though Sarah suspected social convenience played a role in some. "Thank you, Lady Harrington. I hope you'll have a chance to meet some of our scholarship recipients tonight, their stories are truly inspiring." As Lady Harrington drifted further into the crowd, Sarah felt familiar arms wrap around her waist from behind. "How are you holding up, my love?" Oliver murmured softly into her ear. Leaning back into his embrace, Sarah drew strength from the steady warmth of his presence. "Wonderfully. Have you heard about young Timothy Morrison? He's been accepted to Cambridge." Oliver smiled, following her gaze to where former charity beneficiaries now mingled naturally with members of the aristocracy. The seamless integration was Sarah's vision. Rather than simply collecting funds from the wealthy to aid the less fortunate, she had insisted on fostering genuine connection, allowing each person to be seen as an individual, not a statistic. "Timothy's achievement is remarkable," Oliver agreed, his voice carrying pride and admiration. "But then he had exceptional guidance, from you and Lady Thornton," Oliver said, a proud smile in his tone. Sarah shook her head gently. "We've all been learners and teachers in equal measure. I've learned just as much from the families we've supported as I've been able to give them." Oliver turned her gently in his arms, attuned to the warmth, strength, and intelligence in her voice, the steady assurance in her touch. "Do you remember what you told me the night we first danced? That music can be seen, not with your eyes, but in the way it moves through you." "I remember," Sarah whispered, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "You were right about more than music," Oliver continued. "You showed me that there are ways of perceiving the world that have nothing to do with sight, through touch, sound, feeling, and connection." Sarah's eyes shimmered with tears of joy. "And you taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's feeling afraid and choosing love anyway." Their quiet moment was gently interrupted by Dr. Harrison, who approached with a young woman Sarah did not recognize. "Your Graces," he said warmly, "I'd like you to meet Miss Elizabeth Carter, one of the first graduates of the school for the blind you helped establish in Yorkshire." Sarah's breath caught. The school had been Oliver's vision, born from his own journey adapting to blindness and his desire to open doors for others facing similar challenges. "Miss Carter," Oliver said, extending his hand with careful grace, "it's an honor to meet you. How are your studies progressing?" "Wonderful, Your Grace," Elizabeth said, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "I'm learning Braille, studying mathematics and literature, and I hope to become a teacher one day." Sarah watched Oliver closely as he spoke with Elizabeth, noting the quiet pride and satisfaction on his face. Their school had once stirred controversy, many had dismissed educating the blind as a frivolous pursuit, but through their perseverance, it had grown into a model being replicated across England. "Your Grace," Elizabeth said, turning to Sarah, "the other students and I know this school exists because you helped the Duke see that his blindness could be a strength, not just a limitation." Sarah smiled softly. "You give me too much credit, Miss Carter. The Duke's strength was always there. I simply reminded him to trust it." As Dr. Harrison escorted Elizabeth away, Oliver offered his hand to Sarah, guiding her toward the dance floor where couples were beginning to gather. "Shall we?" he asked, extending his arm with the same gallant charm he had shown 5 years before. "Always," Sarah replied, sliding her hand into his. Once on the floor, Sarah marveled at how natural dancing with Oliver had become. He moved with confidence now, his other senses so finely tuned that he rarely needed guidance. Beyond that, they had developed a private language of motion, subtle shifts, pressure, and rhythm that allowed them to communicate without words, a dance uniquely their own. "Do you ever regret it?" Oliver asked softly as they swayed. "Giving up the quiet life you might have had for all of this?" Sarah let her gaze drift across the ballroom, where former rivals now worked together for charitable causes, young lives were thriving because of education and opportunity, and society was slowly learning to value character over circumstance. "How could I regret a life that has brought so much joy to so many?" she answered, her voice full of certainty and warmth. "Besides," Sarah said, her voice soft but certain, "I didn't give up anything. I gained everything: love, purpose, and the chance to make a real difference. Even when the gossip was at its loudest, when they whispered that you were after my fortune and that I was a fool." She smiled, recalling the difficult early days. Those challenges had tested them, but also proved the strength of what they shared, that their bond could endure scrutiny, ridicule, and society's doubts. As the music swelled around them, Oliver felt the full weight of the journey that had brought them here. 5 years ago, he had been a man defined by limits, confined by his blindness, and certain that his life had little left to offer. Now, he was not only a devoted husband and the Duke of Bramwell, but a champion for the disabled, a philanthropist, and a living example that blindness could never diminish purpose or potential. "What shall we do next?" Sarah asked, echoing the same question she had posed on their wedding day. "Next," Oliver said, spinning her gently in his arms. "We keep building our legacy. We expand the school, open doors for those society overlooks, and show the world that love and determination can conquer every obstacle." "Together," Sarah whispered. "Always together," Oliver replied. As they moved in harmony across the dance floor, surrounded by friends, former critics, and lives touched by their work, Oliver and Sarah embodied the lesson they had discovered together: the most extraordinary love stories rarely begin in perfect circumstances. They start with courage, the courage to see the heart beneath appearances, to trust in connection, and to choose love against all odds. The blind Duke and his steadfast companion had done more than find each other. They had created a lasting legacy of hope, compassion, and inspiration. They proved that true nobility is not measured in titles or wealth, but in the bravery to love deeply, the wisdom to look beyond convention, and the determination to build something meaningful together, no matter the challenges. Their story became legend, not for scandal or spectacle, but for the quiet, transformative power of love, a story that encouraged others to look past society's expectations, to embrace connection, and to live with courage, purpose, and heart. They had shown the world that the most extraordinary gifts often come not from those seeking to impress or control, but from those who simply see us as we are, and who have the courage to reach out when everyone else has turned away. In the end, Oliver and Sarah learned that love is not about finding someone flawless, but finding someone who is flawless for you, someone who recognizes your worth when you cannot, someone who stays not for reward or convenience, but because the privilege of loving and being loved is enough. Their dance continued, as it would for the rest of their lives, a seamless partnership grounded in trust, understanding, and the unwavering belief that together, they could meet any challenge and create a love that illuminated the path for others daring enough to follow their hearts. Their story became a beacon of hope for all who witnessed it, a reminder that true love can flourish even in the darkest of circumstances, that devotion matters far more than title or wealth, and that sometimes losing what we think defines us is the first step toward discovering who we are truly meant to be. The Duke and Duchess of Bramwell proved that the most remarkable love stories often begin with the simplest gesture, a hand extended in invitation when all else has withdrawn, and the bravery to accept that invitation despite uncertainty. They showed the world that love is not defined by perfect circumstances or social approval, but by finding someone who sees your true self, and choosing, day after day, to build something beautiful together, one shared